Hey guys, welcome to the podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to our first retro review from the vault. We're going to be taking a look at Ghost in the Shell, the 1995 anime film, an absolute classic in the world of sci-fi anime, and we all rewatched it this week and I really enjoyed seeing it again. Benny.
Hello. This is undoubtedly a seminal film. I'm sure everyone agree, whether you like it or not. And yeah, watching it again for the first time in quite a while was really cool. Really dug it.
Same. I think it's been about 2 years since I last watched it, and what great visual style and flair and interesting themes. You can really see why for me, I really appreciated it more than I ever have before. Connor, did you like seeing it?
I thought it was average.
This is your first viewing, isn't it?
This is my first viewing of it, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm not a huge anime fan. It's just not something that I spend a lot of time watching. I mean, I did enjoy it, but it was super hyped up for me. People kept saying, this is the best anime film of all time. Yeah, it fell a little bit flat for me then. So what I will give this movie credit for is fantastic world building. In what you talked about, like those visuals, so there's really cool shots of the city, of kind of the world that they're living in, really kind of unique ideas, as particularly for the time. I think that some of those ideas could have been flushed out a little bit better, like especially when you first come into the movie, they start using jargon and referencing things that there's no explanation on. But yeah, ultimately, I think the world building was really well done. I enjoy films that do that well. It's one of the reasons that I really like sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that.
It definitely can be a little obtuse, but I think that's part of the joy of it, is just diving into this world that is so dense. And you can tell this is adapted from like a big work, because there's a lot in there and it really feels thought out, even if you can't quite keep up with it all the time. I don't just mean you.
The plot is a little bit superfluous for me. When I was watching the film, the exposition about the plot details and who certain characters were did sort of seem, as I said, superfluous. I kind of glazed over it all, and what I was there to watch was these amazing ideas, the amazing visuals. I particularly like the look of the city, which reminded me a lot of Hong Kong, and then I went and looked up some interviews with the director, Mamoru Oshii, and he said, Hong Kong was a big influence on the look of the city, and the music as well, that opening haunting.
That theme is amazing.
I will give it credit for that. That is a really good opening theme.
Yeah, that whole sequence is just stunning.
Which I hope that they do in the new film.
They do.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they had a press event where they played that scene, like the new version of that scene, with an orchestra playing that theme.
Oh,
apparently,
cool.
they brought back the same composer for the new film.
That would be spectacular, I think.
But what I love about that theme is, number one, how quirky it is. And number two is, for a sci-fi film, it's a very organic, natural sound. It's a acoustic sort of tribal drum and these really interesting, weird Japanese voices, and they are singing in ancient Japanese language. So I thought that immediately sets the film up on a really interesting path that continues through the rest of the film.
That's interesting what you're saying about the plot. I completely agree with that, in that I think this is a movie that is felt rather than following along for all the story details. It's really an experience like that. It reminds me very, very much of another absolutely classic masterpiece that a lot of people also don't like, can be quite divisive, in 2001: A Space Odyssey, which, like this, is a complete experience, and some people can't handle it for whatever reason.
So condescending.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to wash over you as opposed to be understood.
Yeah, I feel like if you are so partial to certain substances, this movie could really give you a hell of a time.
Yeah. Look, I kind of, in a lot of ways, the visuals and the sounds and some of the dialogue kind of presented that to me, but more often than not, I found the movie a little bit too blunt and lacking subtlety. So, I mean, there's entire scenes where she just starts going into this whole philosophical monologue about what it is to be human. And all I could think of is, well, I don't want you to do, I don't want you to tell me what the movie's about. I don't want you to kind of give me this big exposition on the philosophical undertones of the film, because then it's no longer an undertone. It's just shoving it in the audience's face. I think treat your audience with a little bit of respect and say that, I'm going to show you as opposed to tell you what the movie's about.
I think that's all fair, but you got to put yourself in the place of, say 1995 when this came out. Imagine
where people were dumber.
Yeah. Have you seen the 90s? Jesus. Never imagine seeing for the first time ever, like, what a cartoon can do like this. Like, there's a lot of great animated films in history, but you wouldn't have seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a lot of that I feel is still kind of general plot and general general visuals. But I don't think that people in the 90s wouldn't have been able to understand the philosophical conversation that's happened for the last, 2,000 years about what is it to be human. Like, I don't need a character to explain several times to me that that's what this movie is about.
But this film also includes modern elements and future elements to that argument of what it means to be human, or that notion with technology.
Oh,
and that hasn't been talked about for 2,000 years.
100%. But it's the same basic argument, and it's...
that's trivializing it a little, I feel. I think those elements you're talking about are just tropes of the Japanese way of storytelling in anime. I don't think it's badly executed. I think it's just the way it's executed a lot of the time in films in that genre.
Yeah, look, it felt on the nose for me. And that might be the particular style, but it's certainly not a style that I really... Well, I mean, but even saying that, I really enjoy Japanese cinema. And while there are a lot of kind of monologues, I still felt like those weren't as on the nose, and as kind of, treating the audience that brutally. Or bluntly, sorry. Brutally. Which is it's a good way to describe this film, by the way, is just a bit brutal. I mean, particularly for mid-90s, there's some scenes that are a little bit harrowing. Particularly, I imagine, to have seen that in an animated film. Just, some of those scenes are just the gory, essentially.
I wouldn't say this film's blunt. For me, I found this film very refreshing, and it was... As I said earlier, it kind of washes over you. You have these really nice pauses in the film where it goes sort of through a montage sequence over a few minutes, showcasing the grimy cityscape, rundown Hong Kong, and I really liked how it slowed things down. And the second time that vocal theme comes in is a really cool... It's about half an hour into the film. Really cool little moment where it breathes and you just soak in this film, and that's what I really loved about it. I felt like I really got what he was trying to do this time I saw it.
Yeah, I would say for every blunt monologue, which is certainly there is an amazing kind of slow period where there is no dialogue for a while, and again, yeah, you just get to sit there and feel it for a bit.
And those moments I really did enjoy. There's some spectacular visual imagery. But so my biggest thing taking out of this is, how are they going to then bring this into the modern day adaptation? I don't think... Because they're obviously shooting for a different audience now, I think. They're going to try and make it a little bit more accessible.
Commercial.
I hope they do it in a way that doesn't remove what's great about the original content. But I also hope that they kind of, at least in my mind, tidy up a couple of things.
After I finished the film, I immediately chucked on the trailer, the latest trailer for the live action one. And one of the things that I really noticed was, even though they had taken a lot of cues from it in the visuals and the ways they set up scenes, for example, her on top of the building, taking off her cloak and jumping down, there was a lot of familiarity there. The cityscape itself was a lot more neons, a lot more colorful and bright.
It's a lot more Blade Runner-esque.
But even Blade Runner had a dark haziness to it. This one feels a lot brighter, and what I got out of this film is the animated 1995 version was the grays and the pale the pale yellows and creams from that sort of Hong Kong look. And I love that. And it reminded me a lot of RoboCop, reminded me a lot of Dredd as well, that kind of look. And I think they're kind of taking that out of the film, which I'm a little bit upset about because that's one of my favorite ingredients to this film.
There's a lot of warning signs as well in the trailers. They've been showing a lot of kind of generic, potentially story points. Just her being a very different kind of protagonist than she looks
wondering
like in
a
the
lot
original
about
film.
Who am I?
Who am I?
Did I have a family?
Yeah, it kind of feels like some Chosen One bullshit or something.
Which is not really in the anime.
Not at all, no.
She's a far more kind of just straight to it character in that. I think there's a little less. I mean, there's a lot of doubt in her character, but it seems to have been shouldered better in the anime series. Again, it's hard to tell from just the trailers to the extent to which those lines show her, confusion.
You know what's interesting about the anime film is that in the manga, which this film is based off, the character of the Major is a lot more comedic. She's a lot more feminine. She's got that sort of more crazy manga Japanese kind of comedic style.
Really?
And the director decided to pull a lot of that out and make her a lot more sort of hard.
Military?
Yeah, military.
Stoic. She's definitely not comedic in the movie.
She's also very utilitarian. That scene where she's talking about the gun and the driver. He says, "I still use my revolver," and she's like, "Why would you use that? We're not in here to use a cool gun. We're here to do a job." And that's her character. She's very, her intended purpose. She knows it, and she wants to get there in the most effective way.
Yeah. Quick question: what did you guys think of the ending of the anime? Do you feel satisfied with that?
I particularly like the last 2 lines of dialogue from her character. Sort of
where does the newborn go, or whatever
yes.
she says,
and talking about the net and the network of humanity out there. I thought it was a great way to conclude it.
I love the whole confrontation with the puppet master. That whole thing. I definitely find it a little distracting when she's a little girl at the end. That's a bit too anime for me.
Yeah. I mean, I found the ending kind of abrupt, a little bit abrupt. I wonder if they will keep that kind of ending. Or whether they'll branch out. I have a feeling that they might Hollywood this.
Definitely.
I definitely think so.
Yeah, and we won't get that same ending. We'll probably get something that's a little bit more traditionally satisfying, is probably the best way to put it.
I really liked the relationship with her and Bato. I think it was a really cool friendship between a male and a female character where they really had each other's back.
Yeah. And understood each other.
They understood each other and they were there for each other, and it wasn't cheesy. It felt very genuine and sincere.
Is there a Bato character in the live action?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
He's got those same funny little eyes.
Okay, good.
If he doesn't have the goddamn eyes.
I'm out. I'm absolutely out.
So after I saw the film, I did a little bit of research on the director, Mamoru Oshii, and a couple of interviews, he said how he utilizes a Hollywood style of filmmaking in his Japanese anime films, where visuals are 1, story is 2, and characters are 3. And I think you can definitely see that in this film. And he also always kicks his films off with an action sequence, and the opening action sequence of this is so cool, when she takes out that guy in the hotel suite or whatever.
Yeah. Do we feel like the action sequence that we've seen in the trailer will be that first scene?
Well, it has to be because she's jumping off the building.
Yeah. Bit of a different scene below, but same kind of themes behind it. Yeah.
Looks like the movie, I think, is going to be extracting some of the story from the anime standalone complex, the series, and kind of integrating that into it.
Yeah, I always find that a really difficult thing to accomplish if you have a lot of source material. So, I mean, this has the comics, it has the 3 movies and a series, I believe.
Yeah, 3 series and multiple series.
Oh, multiple series, yeah. So, I mean, where do you kind of choose your story from? I think it's the same kind of problem that movies have with adapting video games.
I think the Zelda Breath of the Wild is a really good example of taking elements from a bunch of different pieces of a franchise and reincorporating them into a new version and representing them in a brand new way and combining them in new ways. That I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and I don't think you need to look at it as a where do we stay true? What do we stay true to? We can say, hey, we're going to take a little bit from here, a little bit from there. The sandbox is that much bigger.
But I do think there's still those difficulties lie there.
No, I can definitely understand what you're saying. What sort of fan base do we serve?
Yeah.
This movie's surely probably got a pretty slim chance of being any good, right? I mean, anime adaptations are almost there with video game adaptations in terms of...
Yeah.
What was the last anime adaptation?
Dragon Ball Evolution.
Oh God!
If
that was just a shocking movie on its own.
Do you guys think this one looks to be that similar level?
God, no. It looks great. Like the trailers, I think look fantastic.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's easy to make anything look good, really.
Yeah,
Man of Steel, single greatest trailer ever.
I mean, this is directed by Rupert Sanders, yeah, who did Snow White and the Huntsman, which I liked personally, but it'd be very tough to sing its praises for any significant amount of time.
I agree. It was a very by the numbers. Like it dared to do a few different things, but it wasn't anything to sort of.
He didn't risk enough for us to go, oh, even though he risked it and he failed, at least he risked it.
Yeah.
But he also didn't execute it well enough for us to say, oh well, look at how well he's done it. He kind of just played just outside the line, which is...
But I thought it was a very good looking film, very well directed, so maybe with this more interesting material he can find something better to do.
Yeah. Look, I think that it could be... I think anyone that's expecting the original film will be disappointed.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that original film will translate well into a live-action film. Anyone that's a little bit more open-minded about it, or for that case, anyone that has no knowledge of the original source will probably enjoy it more.
Did you find seeing the anime made you more excited for the live action film?
I think it actually did.
I'd love to see a good version of this.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, look, it's not.
Wow, Connor! Wow.
I've never said that it was a bad film. I've just said that it is well overhyped, and that it isn't the best film.
Well, yeah, but we don't have to say it's the best film.
What is the best film?
Oh,
Just out of interest.
No.
Is it Gladiator?
Hey, you call me out on Gladiator. You've done the witch.
Look, all right, it doesn't have to be the best film, but I when people hype something up that much, you do expect, something more than that.
Was it the cerebral aspect of the film, that sort of meandering, slower pacing that
no
couldn't handle the
I don't think
nature?
I've ever watched a film that's been more hyped up than Dark City by you, and I loved that film.
Yeah.
But that still had that same kind of pacing and that same kind of meandering. It really wasn't the pacing that did it for me. It was those really kind of on the nose scenes. And I mean, thinking back to it, there's even some scenes where he shoots up the species family tree, ending on Hamas, and you're like, that's so on the nose. Like, it wasn't subtly done. It wasn't, for me, it just felt kind of like I was having philosophy bashed on my head.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I very much think this film is one of those movies, like 2001, like Dark City, like Fight Club, even, that is amazing if you see it when you're 14.
I did not enjoy 2001 when I was 14.
Yeah, but you're a pleb. It's
I think I made it just past the first scene when I was 14, because I could only watch a sunrise so many times, and I was, well, fuck this, I'm 15 minutes into a film and I haven't seen anything happen apart from some apes.
He was a troubled teen, but
uncultured.
But I found personally, I think for a lot of people, that period when you start watching movies that don't even necessarily have to be the best movies, but it's the first time you've seen something like that, and it can really blow your mind. And I think, obviously for you coming at it this much later, with all of this reputation at stake, it's yeah, it may
And
not
I'm
work
far
as
more
well.
cynical now than I was when I was 14.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still hate 2001, by the way,
Yeah,
which
no,
is a controversial thing to say to people that enjoy movies. But I just,
Oh,
that-
that's
yeah.
right.
It really doesn't need your support.
That's-
It's pretty well
It's
agreed
doing
upon
well
that
on
it's a
its
good
own.
movie. Yeah.
That's right. I remember from a few years ago, Interstellar versus 2001: A Space Odyssey
Oh God.
battle
Oh
royale.
right, yeah. I really
Wow.
liked Interstellar. I did not enjoy
Interstellar versus 2001: A Space Odyssey. My
Man,
God.
this podcast is getting discredited so badly.
Oh, come on, like people.
Thanks for joining us for 7 episodes of the podcast Strikes Back. It's been a good
We're
time.
packing up, guys. We're done.
No. I'm gonna have my say on this. Goddammit. 2001 is the biggest piece of wank I think that has ever been put on.
This is
to-
a
No,
Ghost
he
in the
does not
Shell.
represent the views of the podcast.
It is. I mean, people.
This is a Ghost in the Shell.
Stanley
trailer.
Kubrick, what a hack, am I right?
All right, we will
Stanley
reapproach.
We're
this
putting
later.
that away for when ratings dip. All right, we'll bring that back.
Hey, just one last cool little tidbit about this film that I like. I say tidbit a lot. It's kind of scaring me. The production team went to these sort of quarries or bits of land where they spent time blowing up stuff and shooting at stuff with guns for the animation and filming it, and the animators used it for the animations, and particularly in that last scene with that tank, the spider tank, where it's shooting at the major, you can feel the firepower of those guns, and as well as the guy in the aqueducts. His gun is just so powerful and destroys everything. I really felt the visceral nature, and I thought that was a cool little story about the production of that film and how they achieved that.
Just as a piece of animation, this movie is pretty stunning.
Yeah, it's up there with Akira as 2 amazing pieces of animation from that period.
Shockingly, I haven't seen that either.
You would hate it.
I wonder if you would hate it. Maybe we should review that.
Yeah, right. Next time. we'll wait for the Zac Efron Hollywood version, then we can review it.
But anyway, guys, that wraps it up for this episode, our first episode of Beyond the Vault.
You just come up with this shit on the fly.
That's it. We're sticking with that name.
I swear that these shows have a different name every single time. Thank you for watching this episode of
Wacky Inflatable.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, we've got our other things coming up soon, so
on the other
subscribe.
channels. Well done.
Probably.
Bye.